Karma, Hazel, and the Merzies.
Chapter 1.
King Tansui was proud of the underwater kingdom that he built. Anemomeopolis was a remarkable feat of engineering. It was built on an extinct volcano, with the king's castle on top, and all the Merzies lived below him on the seamount and all the way to the sea floor.
And with this design, the wealth of the kingdom shall trickle down, touching all of you, so that we can share in it together.
Yeah, that'd be great, sir. But we're underwater. Won't your wealth just float away before it gets to us?
It's supposed to be a symbol, a gesture, a metaphor. I wanted to give you a sign of my love and admiration.
If you really want to give us something, you could just give us your wealth. I like money.
Who is this guy? I just built a brand new city for all of us. I'm trying to do something nice here.
In that case, you may proceed.
Other than that one guy, who was kinda right about wealth not really trickling down, the Merzies were happy and grateful for their new home. The king was good and he was loved. He had managed to make peace with all other sea creatures by decreeing,
"All Merzies shall become vegetarian. We'll dine on seagrasses and algae and random cases of potato chips that fall from passing container ships."
You'd think that would be a rare occurrence, but it happened all the time in Anemomeopolis. Their kingdom was directly below a shipping route, and were it not for the alliance that King Tansui had made with the pigeon-whales, the Merzies would have been covered in human trash. Being half pigeon and half whale, the pigeon-whales were uniquely equipped to deal with the undersea garbage. They'd swim by in pods and swiftly clear an area of sunken canned food, waterlogged flat-screen televisions, and remote-controlled cars. Until the king had made the alliance, the Merzies tended to avoid the pigeon whales. They were huge creatures, and when angry, their beaks and tails could cause serious damage. During the initial negotiations, the king's own son, Prince Benjamin, had his right arm and right flipper snipped off by an angry pigeon whale. The incident almost undid the peace talks. The king, of course, came to the defense of his son, and a battle almost broke out. But then it was revealed that Prince Benjamin had pulled all the feathers off of a young pigeon whale's wings, leaving her unable to swim for 3 months. This was not the first mean thing that the prince had done.
"Son, I hope you've learned your lesson. I'm sorry about your injuries, but I trust this experience will help you swim straight from now on."
Unlikely, father. In case you haven't noticed, I've lost my arm and my flipper on the same side of my body. That means swimming in circles. Lots of circles. Only circles from now on. I hate those stupid whales.
They're actually really sweet.
Be quiet, Pickle. No one asked you.
They are, though. I've been learning their language, and though I can't sing all the notes with my voice, I can sing them with these whistles. They don't want to hurt us.
Yeah, right. Tell that to my arm and flipper.
Father, I can make a whistle for everyone in the kingdom. I can teach them the language and the songs, and that way everyone can talk with the pigeon whales.
Misunderstandings are the vile seeds that grow into the weeds of war. I think this is a great idea. Go on, princess, make the whistles, and have them enchanted by the sea witch so they will be unbreakable. She will do that for you because you are kind of heart.
Thank you, Daddy.
Thank you, Daddy.
That's enough out of you, Prince Benjamin.
The boy was troubled, and the king could only hope that, through his own example, he would eventually see the way towards kindness and goodness. Because the prince could no longer swim properly, the king assigned the 2 strongest swimmers in the guard, Clamshell and Starfishowitz, to be his royal flippers. They swam the prince wherever he needed to go. The king had hoped that they would be a positive influence on the boy, but the next day, when he saw Prince Benjamin flanked by the 2 guards swimming full speed into a school of sardines and netting them for no reason at all, the king worried that the boy's spirit was darker than he imagined.
Chapter 2.
Later that year, well after Princess Pickle had distributed whistles to all the Merzies and showed them how to use them, the king left the kingdom for a solo swim. He'd do this every few months without guards or soldiers accompanying him to clear his head and to reflect on how to best lead the Merzies. Things were good in Anemomeopolis. Folks were communicating with the pigeon whales, food was plentiful, and there was no human trash in the kingdom. The king was emboldened by the peace, and he was contemplating doing the unthinkable for a Merzie. He planned to contact the humans above. He even went so far as to have the sea witch enchant all the whistles that the Merzies wore around their necks, such that they would each allow a human to breathe underwater. If he could make peace with the humans, he could maybe stop their pollution and their hunting and make the entire sea as safe and as wonderful as an Enemyopolis. While these idyllic thoughts were swirling around in his head, King Tansui's guard was down, and he was unaware that he was being stalked by one of the fiercest creatures of the sea, a kelp monster. The monster attacked and wrapped its long leaves around the king's fin, arms, and neck like snakes made from chains. Were it not for the underwater sandstorm that arrived and surprised the kelp monster, that would have been the king's end. With the monster scared back to the seafloor, King Tansui was tossed in the storm like a piece of trash. His body was scraped and thrashed by the wall of sand, and scales, skin, and hair floated away from him as he was pushed through the sea. Miraculously, the injured king made it back to an Enemyopolis. He went unnoticed as he swam into his chambers in the castle, and he startled Prince Benjamin, who was busy reading his father's important private papers on the king's royal desk.
Father, what happened? Are you okay?
There was a kelp monster and a storm. I wasn't paying attention. I got caught. Where's your sister?
I don't know, probably playing with her stupid whistle or something.
Son, I need her. She needs to be prepared.
For what?
To become queen.
Before Prince Benjamin could protest, the king slipped away. His spirit floated to the surface as sea foam to be spread throughout the ocean. The prince summoned his 2 royal swimmers to his father's chamber.
Clamshell and Starfishowitz, bring my sister to me immediately!
Yes, of course, Master Prince.
Are you okay, sir?
I've never been better. I'm about to become king.
Princess Pickle was brought to her father's chambers, and she broke down wailing at the sight of the king's lifeless body.
Benjamin, what happened?
Don't play coy with me. You know full well what happened.
I have no idea.
Oh, spare me, Pickle. We know you used your little whistle to call your pigeon-whale pals to attack the king so you could become queen. Don't we, Clamshell and Starfishowitz?
Sir, I thought you said it was a sandstorm.
Don't we, Clamshell and Starfishowitz?
Sir, yes, sir. Yeah, we saw it all,
Yes,
just
she
like
did.
you
Yes,
said.
sir.
She did it.
You see, sister? That's what happened.
But I would never hurt Dad.
Then I would never hurt Dad. Of course you wouldn't, Pickle. And yet you did. Right, fellas?
Absolutely.
that's it.
Just look at that face.
killed the king.
She's guilty.
Pack your things, sister. It's time for you to move.
What? Where?
Oh, not far. Just to the tower. Take her away, boys, and make sure to get that whistle.
Benjamin, no, please. I didn't do anything.
The Merzies were shocked at the news of King Tansui's death. They were doubly shocked when Prince Benjamin announced that the king fell due to the treacherous acts of Princess Pickle.
Fear not, my Merzies. I showed her no mercy. When I realized what she had done, I had no choice but to go straight at her.
I thought you couldn't swim straight.
It was a figure of speech. I went straight at her with my vengeance.
You can hold vengeance with just one hand? Impressive.
It's not something you hold. It's more of a sentiment.
I don't like spearmint.
Sentiment, not spearmint, sentiment. Who is this guy anyway? Long story short, the king is dead. My sister killed him with her whales, and I killed her, so I'm the king now. I'm in charge.
Well, whoop-de-doo. All hail the spearmint king.
Guards!
Chapter 3.
Karma Hazel was way ahead of her time. She was a rocker before rock and roll was invented. With her neon green ukulele fastened on her back like a samurai sword, she would go city to city and town to town playing her music. By and large, people did not like her strange, loud music. Some people would boo, some would throw things at her, and others would flee as soon as she began to strum. What is that wretched sound?
I don't know, but it's horrible.
Karma Hazel was undaunted by their complaints. She'd continue to play long after her audience had dispersed. She knew that her music was great, and that one day she would find an audience who appreciated her. Karma had replied to an ad in the newspaper announcing a job in Australia.
Wanted, ukulele player to play beautiful music for an intimate outdoor restaurant on the beach. Fair pay, beautiful views, and all-you-can-eat mozzarella sticks.
2 weeks later, she received a letter in the mail saying that she'd gotten the job. Sure, they hadn't heard her playing, but beautiful music was a subjective thing, and she would show them that her music was indeed beautiful. And while she did, she'd get fat on delicious mozzarella sticks. Karma Hazel booked passage on the next ship to Australia. The ship was full of tourists and travelers. When evening fell, Karma Hazel realized she had a captive audience. It was warm that first night, and most folks were milling about on the deck, chatting and laughing. Karma Hazel pulled her uke from her back, pulled the sequin strap over her shoulder, and began to play.
Why is that lady murdering her instrument?
Oh gosh, I was worried about getting seasick, and now I'm getting soundsick. Somebody please make her stop. I'm gonna throw up.
Even though it was almost 80 degrees outside, all the passengers returned to their stuffy cabins to hide from the terrible music.
Forget those people, man. I'm gonna play my uke for the fishes. Rock on!
Rock on was something that Karma Hazel said often, but she wasn't sure why or what it meant exactly. She climbed out to the very tip of the bow, dangled her feet over the edge, and continued to play. She played for hours, ignoring the shouts and groans coming from the cabins as people called for her to stop. Karma Hazel played late into the night. She kept playing, even when exhaustion had set in, and she could have swore that she saw a whale swim by. But not just any whale. A whale with a bird's head and wings.
Whoa, that was cool! Some kind of birdfish. I gotta write a song about that.
Karma Hazel continued to play, thinking that no one was listening. But she was wrong. In the water, deep below the ship, her first fan was hearing her music for the first time.
Chapter 4.
When Prince Benjamin became King Benjamin, life in Anemomeopolis changed overnight. Pigeon whales were banished from the kingdom, and King Benjamin despised the creature so much that he sent out hunting parties to harvest their hearts for him to dine on. His father's vegetarian decree was repealed, and Merzies were encouraged to eat whatever they wanted from the sea. Without the pigeon whales clearing the humans' trash away, garbage began to accumulate all over the kingdom. All Merzies were required to wear their whale whistles at all times, but they were forbidden from ever blowing them or from communicating with the pigeon whales. Those who removed their whistles or attempted to contact the mighty beasts would have their tails whacked off, and they were exiled forever from the safety of the kingdom. Behind his throne, King Benjamin made a gallery of the tails that he had whacked. Limp Mersey tails hung on the walls all around him, reminding all Merzies that this king was not to be trifled with. Instead of working for peace and harmony, everyone worked for the new king. Where his dad was kind and generous, King Benjamin proved to be ruthless and mean. He ruled like a typical tyrant, without patience, understanding, or mercy. Crossing the king would cost you. The cost was entirely dependent on his mood. Most Merzies lived in constant fear of having their tails whacked. King Benjamin liked to surprise his subjects by showing up unannounced to their homes and businesses for random royal Benjamin inspections, as he called them. One day, he had Clamshell and Starfishowitz swim him over to the east side of the seamount, and he barged in on Serena Volmuth and her daughter Leora, as Serena was working in her jewelry shop. Serena was startled by the king's abrupt entrance and dropped the pearl necklace that she'd been busy threading. Pearls scattered in the water and fell about in her studio.
What kind of shoddy workmanship is this?
I'm so sorry, Your Highness. I was startled. I didn't know you were coming.
If you had, it wouldn't be much of a random royal benchman inspection, now would it?
No, sir, I suppose not.
Fear not. You will not lose your tail today.
Oh, thank you, sir. I'm so...
But you will lose your job, and you of course now owe me for my troubles. 400 mer coins seems fair to me.
400 mercoins!
Leora, don't!
Oh, excuse me. Is that not enough, young lady? Maybe I should make it 500 mer coins, 600? Or maybe I should just whack your mother's tail, maybe yours too.
Sir, I'm so sorry. She's just a girl. She spoke out of turn. 400 is a fair and just punishment for my butterfingers.
Yes, it is fair and just like me. And you're lucky that before coming to this hovel, I dined on the tastiest pigeon-whale heart that I've had in ages, and I'm in a fine mood for it. Otherwise, you'd be swimming with the fishes, as they say. Good day to you both.
When the king's aides left, Serena hugged her daughter. Leora was angry with the king. She knew he wasn't fair or just. She also knew that her mom would never be able to come up with the 400 mer coins. Until she paid the punishment, she would not be allowed to work. Without work, she wouldn't be able to afford food. Her mom was already weak from years of being hunched over her jeweler's workbench, and thanks to the king's decree that Merzies couldn't work until they were 21 years old, Leora wasn't allowed to get a job and chip in. But she wasn't going to let her mother suffer for the whims of an angry king.
Oh, my sweet Leora, what are we to do?
I'm not sure, Mom, but don't worry. I'm gonna figure out some way to get 400 mercoins.
The young Mersey took her mother's jewelry hammer, kissed her mom in the cheek, and swam out the front door. She had no idea where to go or how exactly she was going to raise the money. She knew she couldn't involve any other Merzies. If they were caught, the king's wrath would spread beyond just her and her mom. So Leora swam away from an enemyopolis. She swam through the dangerous kelp beds, into the night, and out into the deep, dark sea. She found containers from ships and investigated them, hoping for anything of value, namely potato chips. Other than potato chips, Merzies had little use for human things. There were no chips in these containers. She heard the sounds of a pod of pigeon whales approaching, and she hid inside the container. Their songs became muddled with the engine noise of a ship up on the surface. The whales were traveling below the ship in the same direction. For an instant, Leora thought about blowing her whistle and asking the pigeon whales for help. She was certain that they too disliked King Benjamin. But just as she was pulling the whistle up to her lips, just as she was about to break one of the king's strictest rules, the whales were startled by something that was thrown off the side of the ship. They abruptly changed direction and disappeared into the darkness. As their songs faded, they were replaced by another. It was not just a song, but an entirely new music that Leora had never heard. It warmed her heart inexplicably and seemed to both feed her and make her hungry for more at the same time. The beautiful sound was coming from the ship. Leora swam below it, closer than she'd ever been to humans, to find its source. In the moonlight, she could see two legs dangling off the front of the ship, and she could see the green glow of some strange, wonderful instrument being played by a human girl who seemed to be about her same age. Nothing in an enemyopolis sounded even remotely like this. To Leora's ear, it was perfect music. Anyone in their right mind would pay to hear this music, and Leora was getting it for free, a private concert. That's when Leora realized if she could bring this incredible music to her king, then he would almost certainly forgive her mother's debt. In fact, she was likely to receive a reward of some kind. The ship was moving fast, and Leora knew she couldn't hold that pace for very long. Before that glorious music could get away, she began swinging her mother's hammer repeatedly into the ship's hull. With each swing, she thought of how relieved her mother would be. With the reward, they might be able to buy a nicer home. Maybe it would be enough that her mother would never have to work again. Holes began to form in the bottom of the ship, and Leora continued to hammer away.
Chapter 5.
The passengers on the ship began shouting and screaming and running about the deck. Karma Hazel assumed they were still complaining about her music, and she had tuned them out completely.
Oh no, the ship! It's sinking!
There aren't enough lifeboats!
Somebody call SOS!
What does SOS mean anyway?
I have no idea, but I hope someone saves our ship!
Karma Hazel kept playing as the ship sank, and even as she was in the water, she still tried to play her uke. But she quickly realized that if she was going to survive, she'd have to use her arms to swim. The other passengers were clinging to bits of debris. Karma Hazel held onto her uke. She was an okay swimmer, not great, but the current was strong, and Karma Hazel was being swept away from the shipwreck. It took all her energy just to keep her head above water. And then, all of a sudden, Karma Hazel felt something grab her from the dark water and pull her under. She tried to scream for help and got a mouthful of salt water. She felt something around her neck, and then the water somehow felt light and dry like the air above. She could breathe, but she was still underwater. Her eyes focused, and swimming next to her was a young woman, about the same age. Only she had a fishtail instead of legs.
Whoa! What's happening?
Hi, I'm Leora. I didn't mean to scare you, but I love your music, and I had to hear more. I needed to, actually, to save my mom.
You like my music?
Oh, very much.
Rock on!
What does that mean?
I'm not really sure, but you didn't have to sink the ship to get me to play. I live to play my uke. What's the story with your mom? And how the heck am I breathing and talking underwater? Did you put this whistle on my neck?
Leora explained all that had happened with her mother and how Karma Hazel's music could maybe help. She also explained the whistle's enchantment and warned Karma Hazel against ever blowing it.
So you'll help me then?
Are you kidding? I get to play my music for a merman king and save your mom in the process? Yeah, I'm in!
Thank you!
Rock on!
What does that mean?
No idea.
On the way back to Anemomeopolis, Leora swam slowly beside Karma Hazel. In the water, human legs were no match for a Merzies' powerful tail. Karma Hazel could hardly believe the adventure she was on. She liked Leora. She seemed kind and sincere, and even better, she was a fan. The two were talking and laughing as they swam when Leora's face dropped.
What's wrong?
It's the king's hunters. They're coming this way. Stay quiet.
If she was alone, she could have easily outswam them, but that was impossible for Karma Hazel. Leora paused with her new friend, treading water as the hunters approached. They dragged a dead pigeon-whale alongside them and slowed as they saw Leora and the human. As they passed, one hunter called out to Leora.
Looks like somebody has a death wish.
Why did he say that?
We're not supposed to interact with humans.
What happens if you do?
Did you see that whale?
Yeah?
That. But don't worry. Once the king hears your music, I'm sure everything will be fine. It has to be.
Thanks to the hunters, by the time Leora and Karma Hazel arrived at Anemomeopolis, word had spread that the jeweler's daughter was bringing a human to the underwater city. Guards lined the entranceway to the city, and Leora did not need to request an audience with the king. He had demanded to see her the second she arrived. The two were escorted by guards up the sea mountain into the castle where King Benjamin sat in his throne with a scowl on his face. He was flanked by Clamshell and Starfishowitz.
You again? Are you a glutton for punishment or just a fool?
Neither, sir.
Finding your mom 400 mercoin wasn't enough for you? You decided to remove your whistle?
Punishable by tail whacking.
And you brought a human into my kingdom?
Punishable by death.
And you're not a fool?
No, sir. I brought you a gift. This is my friend, Karma Hazel. Yes, she's human, but she plays the world's most beautiful music, and I thought maybe if you heard it and if you enjoyed it even half as much as I did, then maybe you would forgive my mother's debt.
And if I don't?
Well, at least I tried.
Go on then, human. Play.
Yes, sir! Rock on!
What? What does that mean?
I'm not really sure. It's just something I say.
Karma Hazel reached back and pulled her neon green ukulele from its place in her back holster. She looked at the king and then over to Leora, who nodded in approval, and Karma Hazel's fingers touched her strings. From the first note, Leora was in absolute bliss. The music was gorgeous and otherworldly to her. Sadly, it did not have the same effect on King Benjamin or his henchmen.
Ah, what's that horrible sound?
My ears, they're burning! Make it stop!
Stop that horrible racket this instant!
You didn't like it?
That was the single worst thing I've heard in my entire life! That was a vile display and a violation of my royal ears! That offense demands a punishment worse than...
Sir, that was beautiful music!
Quiet! That offense demands a punishment worse than death! Guards, take them to the tower and lock them away! There they shall spend the rest of their days!
Chapter 6.
The tower was dark and cold. There were no windows, but the water inside contained bioluminescent algae. When either girl swished their hand or kicked their legs or tail, the room would glow with an eerie but beautiful dim blue light. The floor was covered with dead bits of seaweed and sand. Karma, Hazel, and Leora were left with no food, no blankets, and no way out. Thankfully, Karma Hazel still had her neon green uke, and at Leora's request, she played to help pass the time. The two were comforted by the music. Leora closed her eyes as the sounds washed over her, and Karma Hazel had her head down as she played, and didn't notice the tattered figure emerge from the shadows and swim towards them.
Oh my, what glorious music you make! And you're a human!
Ah! Who are you?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to frighten you. It's been so long since I've seen anyone or heard any music. I just wanted to get closer to the sound. Princess Pickle, is that you? Yes, my dear, it is I. But the king said you were dead. My brother, the prince, says a lot of things. Mostly he speaks in lies. He is only the king because of his lies, and because he's trapped me in here.
Is there no way out of here?
Not unless you have a battering ram or some explosives or... Wait!
Are you wearing a whale whistle? I guess so. Leora gave it to me. Do you know what that means? That I can breathe and talk underwater without drowning? Yes, but not that. It means we can call the pigeon whales.
Isn't that illegal?
My dear, we are in the tower. We can either die here or try and escape. Are you saying we're gonna use whales to bust out of here? That's exactly what I'm saying. Rock on! What does that mean? I have no idea, really. It's just something I say. Means different things at different times, I guess.
The princess moved in closer to Karma Hazel and lifted the whistle off her chest without removing it from her neck.
This might get a little crazy. Are you girls ready?
I'm ready. Karma Hazel?
Oh, yeah.
Princess Pickle brought the whistle to her mouth and began to blow. A swirl of notes filled the tower, flooding it with sound. These weren't random improvised notes, but a message, an announcement, an apology, and a plea for help all at once, and all in a language that only the whales understood. She told the whales of King Benjamin's treachery and lies, of how he was responsible for their harm and the breakdown in peace between the Merzies and the pigeon-whales. She told them how she had been imprisoned and was unable to communicate with them because she'd been stripped of her whale whistle. She begged them to come to her aid, and if they did, she promised peace would return. Just as she was finishing her message, the door to their cell burst open and 2 guards swam in to stop whoever was blowing the whale whistle.
I'm afraid you're too late.
Quiet, you. When the king finds out you blew that thing, he'll have your head.
I'd like to see him try.
What is that sound?
That is the sound of me becoming your queen. Like I said, you are too late.
The pigeon whales came from every direction, even from above, and they had one goal: to destroy the king. His guards' attempts to fight were quickly thwarted by the ferocity of the long-injured whales. Pigeon whale beaks clipped and snipped at the Mersey guards' tails, and they dropped their weapons and royal uniforms to swim to safety. Leora, Karma Hazel, and the princess braced themselves as the walls of the tower shook as the whales were pounding into the stone walls in search of Princess Pickle. They finally burst through. Light and fresh water poured into the tower.
Yeah, rock on!
The 3 were freed. Leora helped Karma Hazel onto the back of one of the whales and followed as the princess led the charge on the castle. All the whales followed, and they rammed the castle with their huge bodies and whacked it with their mighty tails. Stones fell and the building rumbled with each strike. The guards had retreated, and King Benjamin tried to escape with Clamshell and Starfishowitz's help, but the whales had made short work of the rotten little henchman. Clamshell was skewered by a beak and left to float to the surface. Starfishowitz was batted around like a plaything between a few whale tails until the pigeon whales tired of the game and one of them clipped off his head with its beak. Without the aid of his aides, King Benjamin swam pathetically in circles.
Pickle, please!
You will call me queen.
Queen, please, show your brother some mercy!
Mercy, you say? Should I show you the same mercy that you showed your sister? Or should I show you the mercy that you showed this young lady's mother when she dropped a pearl? Or how about the mercy you showed these 2 who were sent to the tower for bringing you the gift of music?
If that was music, I'm a sea slug.
That would be an improvement.
Nice one, Leora. Rock on! Or should I show you mercy how you showed mercy to the pigeon whales by eating their hearts?
Sister, please, don't kill me!
I am not a monster like you. You are free to go, free to swim away, and you are forever banished from an enemyopolis. Oh, it looks like you're having trouble swimming. You won't get far swimming in circles. Here, brother, let me show you some mercy.
Queen Pickle swam up to Karma Hazel to again borrow her whistle. She blew a series of requests to Rognam, the leader of the pigeon whales, asking him to remove the former king's remaining left arm and left flipper. The pigeon whale was more than happy to oblige, and the disgraced king cried and wiggled away into the darkness like the worm that he was.
Epilogue.
With the rightful queen on the throne, peace once again returned to Anemomeopolis. The pigeon whales were again welcomed, and all Merzies were encouraged to use their whale whistles to communicate with their neighbors. And the whales once again helped remove the humans' endless stream of trash. All debts owed to King Benjamin were forgiven, and Queen Pickle made Leora's mom her own personal royal jeweler. The queen asked Karma Hazel if she would like to stay in Anemomeopolis as the royal ukuleleist, to which she replied,
Rock on!
Which the queen correctly understood to mean, yes please. Every day thereafter, Anemomeopolis was filled with the glorious sounds of ukulele, whale whistles, and the songs of pigeon whales, all playing in harmony. And whenever possible, the Merzies and the human enjoyed yummy potato chips.